everyone, my name is Anna Hunter Nichols. I'm a community living specialist at Vail, Valley Associates for Independent Living. And today I'm going to be walking through how to make no-bake chocolate chip and peanut butter cookies. So, the first thing that I always do is wash my hands, right? And then I always get a recipe pulled up. I have one on my phone, but I also wrote it down on paper so that I could have them both there if need be. So the first thing that we want to do is look at the ingredients, right? We want to know what our recipe is going to look like and all the steps for it before we start, and that way we have it in our head. The first thing to note is that we're going to need 2 cups of sugar, a half a cup of milk, 1 stick of unsalted butter, a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, 3 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats, 1 cup of smooth peanut butter, a tablespoon of vanilla, a large kosher salt, a pinch, and then the first thing we want to do is make sure we have a lined baking sheet with wax paper or parchment. Then we're going to bring the sugar, milk, butter, and cacao to a boil on a pan. And I'll show you over here. We'll be doing it over here with our pan. And make sure it's big enough that you can add all of your ingredients in there. And then I have a wooden spoon so that we can mix everything. So if we come back over here, so we'll boil it on a medium heat until it starts boiling, and we'll do that for a minute. And then we can add the rest of our ingredients, which will be the rolled oats, the peanut butter, and I believe the vanilla and salt. And then we will mix it all together in our pan, put it on our parchment paper, just like regular cookies, and then we'll let them sit and rest for 30 minutes. And you can also put them into the freezer if you want to cool them faster. So the first thing we need to do is line our parchment sheet. So as you can see, I already have 2 sheets with parchment paper on them, and then we can come back and look at our second step. So now we need to bring sugar, milk, butter, and cacao to a boil. So it's always good to start with our first ingredients. And so we're gonna need 2 cups of sugar. So I will come over here. Now when you're measuring out dry ingredients like sugar or oats, you're always gonna use your dry measuring cups, okay? And so here's this one. If you're measuring liquid like milk, then you'll use your glass measuring cups, okay? So we need 2 cups, and I believe I have a 1/4 cup here with me, so I'm just gonna use that and come over here. And I've already turned on to a medium heat, about 4, and I'm just gonna scoop it out and put it right in there. So we're gonna do 4 of these. So that would be half, and we're gonna use a little less sugar. So that was 3 spoonfuls, which would be 3/4 of a cup. So that was a cup, and we're gonna do maybe a cup and a half. Okay, so we're just gonna put that in there. So we're done with our sugar, so I'm gonna put the sugar aside. And then we look at our next one. So we did our sugar, now we need our milk. So we're gonna do a half of a cup of milk. And I used a little less sugar. It's all dependent on how, what feels right for you all. So when you're measuring your liquid, you can see on the side here, it tells you exactly how much. So on this side, there's cups, and on this side, it's ounces. It tells you that at the top. So we're gonna get a half of a cup. So you want it on a level table or countertop, and then you can come down and see exactly where the lines line up on the other side as well. So we're gonna take our milk and we're gonna pour half a cup. Yep, that's about half a cup. And then we'll add that into our mixture here. And then we want to add the butter. And my butter looks a little bit different, but it says 1 stick of butter. We have a slightly bigger block here, but one stick would be about 1/4. So we're gonna add in our butter. See if I can cut it here. So we have our stick of butter, and I'm gonna come over and add that to our bowl, our pan over there. And the last thing we need is cacao, and that's 1/4 of a cup. We're gonna be using our 4th cup again. And I have the cacao here, baking cacao. There's a lot of different types, so you can use whatever works best for you. And you can also use chocolate chips if you would prefer. But this recipe calls for baking cacao, and it's also it's not sweet, so you don't have the sugar from the chocolate chips. So with our baking, or with our cacao, when I'm measuring things, you don't want like a lip on it. You want it flat. So you don't want to compact it either. So you pick a scoop up, and I like using a knife, and then I just use that to push off the rest of it. And you can do that until you have a flat top, and then you can add that to your pan. So let's come over and add it to our pan, and we can see that it's starting to boil a little bit. So we want to take our spatula or spoon, whatever you're using, and mix it up some. And you want to make sure you mix it a lot because you don't want it to burn on the bottom. Okay? No burning. And you can see our piece of butter in there. It's still melting. So as you can see, I'm continuing to stir it and melt it and get out all the bubbles, and make sure all the sugar and the cacao and the butter are mixed together. So you don't want to be able to tell if there's patches of sugar in there. You want to mix it all together. So now you guys can see that it has started to boil. And we just want it to boil just a little bit for about a minute. So keep stirring it because you don't want it to burn on the bottom. And once all of that, after about a minute, we're going to start adding in the rest of our ingredients, okay? So while we let that boil, we're going to come back over here and we're going to start adding in the next things. So the last thing we put in was the cocoa powder. So the next thing is the 3 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats. So I've already measured out 2 cups here. As you can see, it says 2 cups. So we want our 2 cups in there, and then we want an extra 1 cup. So I'm gonna take my oats and put it into my cup. So here's my last cup, and I'm gonna add that in, and I'm gonna stir it around a little bit. Make sure all of it gets coated. And at this point, if you want to, you can turn down the heat just a little bit. And then continue to stir in your oats. And then we're gonna add in our next ingredient, which is our smooth peanut butter. So we want 1 cup of smooth peanut butter. And I'm just gonna use this type because that's what I had. but whatever you would prefer, you can use. So I used a measuring cup like this. It might be a little bit easier to use one like this if you want to actually see how much is in there. And then we're just going to add our peanut butter to our bubbling pan. Then you can see that my peanut butter is in there, and I am just mixing it all together. And I will add in our last ingredients. So we just added the peanut butter. Now we want our vanilla, 1 tablespoon of vanilla, and a pinch of kosher salt. So we're gonna get our vanilla here. We're gonna find our tablespoons. Mine are over here. And usually on your tablespoons, it says how much it is. So right there it says 1 tablespoon. I know that can be a little hard to read sometimes. And on the other ones, it tells you exactly how much is there, right? So this one is 1 teaspoon, and that's 1/4 of a teaspoon. So make sure when you're reading your measurements, make sure it's either teaspoon or tablespoon, because you don't want to get those mixed up. So we're going to add 1 tablespoon of vanilla, of pure vanilla. Now, as you can see, I added mine over the pot, and that way if I add a little bit extra, then it just goes straight into the pot and I don't have to clean anything up. So we're almost done. All we need is a pinch of our kosher salt. So I have mine here, and we'll bring this over. And if you want to, you can use your tablespoons. It's probably 1/2 of a teaspoon or so. And we're just gonna add that right in. A little more. And then we're almost done. We just need to stir it up and let it all mix together. And then we're gonna put them on our parchment paper. So as you can tell, I've mixed up all of our ingredients. And I am turning the stove off because we're done with that. And now we're gonna put our ingredients onto our parchment paper. I'm using 2 spoons to get it off, and it's pretty easy. So I'm just picking up a spoonful and bringing it over here and putting it onto the parchment paper. And I want to make them about the same size. So if I need to add a little more, then I can do that. And then they're about the same size. And we're going to spread them out like that. Now they might spread out a little bit as they cool, but you don't need it to spread out. And then, right where that one is. So you keep doing that until you fill up the whole parchment paper and both of the trays. So now I have my cookies on the parchment paper, and I can let them sit out and cool down. And if you want to, you can stick them in the fridge or the freezer, and you can keep them in there up to 3 days. And there's 2 last things we have to do. We always have to clean our dishes when we're done with them. So I'm gonna clean our dishes, and then hopefully once we're done with that, our cookies will be cool enough to pick up and eat. So have a good day, guys. It was nice cooking with you, and I hope you enjoy them.